Okay. All right. Well, I'm ready to rock and roll. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Show how I do it. Oh, yeah.
You do like 8 of them, right?
Welcome to the last of the Action Heroes podcast, which is the flagship podcast of this network. Now, let me explain. Now, this is only the 3rd episode I've done, okay? But when I did this last of the Action Heroes podcast network idea, and I invited all these guys that are on the feed. If you're on this feed listening to this show, and you probably have listened to all the other ones, you got Rocky Minute, Slycast, I Must Break This Podcast, the Bruce Willis one, the Arnold one, the James Bond one, the soon-to-be Mel Gibson one, Steven Seagal. I think we got a lot of great podcasters. These guys are incredible podcasters. I just enjoy doing it as all. And I'm going to get to our guest, but before I do, I just want to explain. So this is the 3rd episode. What I kind of had an idea with this little sub-channel podcast of The Last of the Action Heroes is to kind of pick those action movies that people probably aren't familiar with, or if they are familiar with, they're kind of days, even more days gone by, and they're not from the big ones I just mentioned. That's the whole idea. So this channel or this subset podcast, The Last of the Action Heroes podcast network show, our first one was Chuck Norris, Force of One movie, and then our second episode was The Best of the Best with Eric Roberts. So those type of movies, the ones that are, I want to say bottom of the barrel, I really enjoyed watching those 2 films and reviewing them. So it kind of went in, I wouldn't say as a joke, but I ended up kind of having a lot of fun. So that theme we'll be carrying in today. But before we get to that movie today, I have a special guest with me. This is Jared Tockstein of the Hyperspace Podcast. Jared, welcome to this episode, this show.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of the Going the Distance podcast. I've been listening for several years now, wow. So this is a great honor for me. It's great to be here.
Please go on. Tell me how awesome I am.
Oh, well, 3 years ago, or 4 years ago now, I guess I started listening to your guys' show, The Rocky Show, after I saw Creed 2. Okay. And I thought, man, look, because I was in a big Rocky mood, and I was like, there's got to be out there somewhere a Rocky podcast.
Oh, wow.
A couple of Google searches later, I found you guys. I started from the beginning. I finally caught up to you guys as you were doing the show live. I think I caught up with your Rocky 3 coverage.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Like you were talking about Rocky 3 as I had finally caught up to you. So
wow. So you're really there at the beginning. Well, that's pretty early.
So I think in 2018 you were finishing up Rocky 3 and going into Rocky 4, somewhere around in there.
Yeah, we're nearing the end. I guess, did you hear my latest episode about that?
Yeah, I listened to it yesterday, actually.
Okay, yeah.
We're starting Rambo next, I guess.
Yeah, that's the goal. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the Twitter name, just call it the Rocky and Rambo series podcast, because I've already got people on there. Why rebuild the not fan base, because that's not true, but why rebuild the followers on my Twitter?
Sure.
Just because it gets the word out there just as easy. But the podcast name for the Rambo will be called "It's a Long Road," the Rambo series podcast.
Okay, it's a long road.
It's a long road. Now you know why it's called that?
Tell me.
Okay, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. Well, it's kind of it's not a deep cut, but it's the chorus of the song at the end of First Blood. It's a long road when you're on your own. It's like the worst. It's like the worst song in one of Stallone's careers for his movies. It's just a terrible ending to an incredible film. It's like, hey, we just had this incredible film. Let's just end it with the crappiest song.
Yeah, let's put the crap on top of the Rambo Sunday right here.
It is not Going the Distance quality song. And also, I want to ask Jared, what are your thoughts on the way I've been editing the Creed podcast with my Creed covers? Do you like that? Do you enjoy it? Do you look forward to the new one each week?
You know what? I have to be honest. I'm kind of glad you moved the Creed covers to the end.
You're one of those. You wanted me to move it to the end. Okay, fair.
But listen, I did usually make it about 10 seconds into every single opening before I'd said, this is the most terrible thing I've ever heard. So
that's fair.
That's fair. But now that they're at the end, I actually listened to them.
That's
so go figure.
Weird. That's weird.
Yeah,
that's
weird. It is.
It will end. When Creed 2 ends, that's it. There's no more funny covers. I won't be doing that for the Rambo film.
You can't find a funny cover for that song at the end of First Blood?
It's terrible enough. It's terrible enough. I don't need it.
Will you use that song? Is the question.
Oh, I would assume so, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not as Rambo schooled as I am in Rocky.
I'm a huge fan of both franchises, and I've always said, yeah, Rocky is the one you marry. Rambo's the one you go home with for the weekend.
Sure.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy both for different reasons. And I absolutely freaking love the Rambo films. They're so much fun. I love them all. I want you to plug your podcast. Sorry, I feel bad.
Sure.
Tell us who you are.
I am Jared Tockstein, as you heard. I am the co-host of the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th Century. We're not necessarily all sci-fi, but me and my co-hosts Matt and Mike, we're actually all Ryan's age. We're in our mid-40s.
How dare you?
Yeah. We grew up in the golden age of entertainment. I think all the TV shows and movies that came out back then are just amazing. It was a gold mine of pop culture, and that's kind of what we grew up with, and that's kind of what we talk about on our show every week. Growing up in that age, the stuff that we enjoyed. We actually did a series of Rocky podcasts last year. Babbling with Balboa, yes. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff we talk about. We try to do it on a weekly basis. Right now, we're talking a lot of Star Wars because of the Book of Boba Fett is on, so we do a weekly show about that. We've been doing it for a couple of years. It's a lot of fun.
Great job. I listen to your podcast. You guys do a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, I love sci-fi too. I'm a lover of sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm watching The Expanse right now for the first time, that kind of stuff. But I got turned on to you. I think you reached out to me first. I'm not sure, but I definitely got turned on to you with your Rocky coverage. You did a great job. I always say everyone that does podcasts about Rocky, they always seem to do better than I do. That's why I hate listening to other people's podcasts. Because it's like, they're funny or they're good. I don't know. But so I appreciate your support. But
no, you found your voice and your niche when you started doing the commentary style. Like when you would play the film, I think that's when everything clicked for you guys.
I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot because you can say, no, you're okay. But we've had a few of our listeners say that we should go back.
Yes, I think you should with Kyle and Katie.
I know.
Yes. I don't know. Maybe if you guys are feeling strong, that's something you could do as you go into Rambo.
Because Rambo won't take as long.
Yeah.
We could do Rocky one week, Rambo the next. Okay. Well, anyways, people are like, hey, shut up and talk about Burt Reynolds.
You can tell I'm trying to put this off as long as possible.
Well, we might be coming from two different angles then. Jared agreed to watch the Burt Reynolds 1980s. It was filmed in 86, but it was released in 87 stateside. The classic action year film noir film, Heat. Not to be confused with the Robert De Niro, Al Pacino Heat. I don't want anyone to be confused.
That's the only other Heat I knew about before I knew about this gem.
Yeah, so when people went to the video store when Heat came out with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, they got really confused. Like, do I get the Burt Reynolds one or do I get the Michael Mann directed, stellar cast, incredible film? Why did we choose this one? Was this just me saying we're doing this one, or did I give you some options?
No, you put this on a list,
okay,
and you sent me a bunch of Tubi links.
Yep.
And you're like, pick one of these.
That's right.
And I thought, okay, why not? And Heat, the name grabbed me. So I was like, You know what? We're going to try this. See what happens.
This is exciting. Now, if you're a listener of the Rocky Series podcast, and Jared, you'll remember this, my brother Ruben and I, we did it for about a couple seasons where we would constantly refer to Burt Reynolds and his famous Playgirl or nude spread. Well, he never showed quite the, he never quite showed the whole Reynolds, but
sure,
he was on a bear rug. Burt Reynolds on a bear rug.
Well, and with his body hair, it's kind of hard to tell when the bear rug started and he ended. So,
that was the ongoing joke. We loved it. We loved it. So I missed those days, and I missed podcasting with Ruben, but yeah, that was a fun joke that he and I did all the time about Burt Reynolds. So this movie, Heat, is the first Burt Reynolds film that I've ever watched because of Burt Reynolds, meaning I'm watching this film and Burt Reynolds is the star. Now, I've seen a couple of other films, of course, that he's been in, like,
Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bandit, of course, when I was a kid, but I haven't seen those in 30-odd years.
Same.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you which one I've seen. I think there's three of them. They were on cable TV as a kid, so I'd always watch the car chases and the yeehaws and the...
Yeah.
It was like a kind of like a PG-13 Dukes of Hazzard type feeling to
yes.
this film. Yeah, okay. And I always got those mixed up with Cannonball Run. Now, is he in those too?
He is.
Okay.
Yes.
See,
but they're two different series, separate things.
Okay. Yeah. And so this is the first one where, like, literally I saw Burt Reynolds. I saw the movie Heat. Let's do this. So that was one of the options I gave you. And I was so happy you picked this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say right now, Jared, I went to watch this with, this is going to be a sludge fest. This is going to be horrible. I can't believe I'm watching a Burt Reynolds film. I left this film, not even joking. I was like, I'm going to watch more Burt Reynolds stuff from the 80s and 70s and 80s. I want to see more Burt. He impressed me here.
There is a reason that he was one of the biggest movie stars in the late 70s and early 80s in the world. He has charisma.
He does have charisma.
Yes, he does. I'm not a Burt Reynolds fanboy. I watched Smokey and the Bandit because of Dukes of Hazzard. You know, I thought he was great in Boogie Nights late in his career. I never have been one to seek out any Burt Reynolds films.
No.
And I want to talk to you about this because, you know, you're a Stallone guy. There's a lot of parallels between Burt and Stallone.
Sure, do tell.
In that from the mid 90s to the mid 2000s, Stallone was doing like straight to video stuff. Yeah. He just could not catch a break. And Burt Reynolds, by the point in his career when he was making Heat to the mid 80s, he was on that same trajectory.
Right.
He was just making crap so he could cash a paycheck and try to keep his face out there. I read a quote from him saying, getting to the top is not nearly as fun as staying there. In this quote, he said, I got Tom Selleck breathing down my neck.
Oh, his mustache was tickling his mustache.
Yes. So, and I think Heat lands right in the middle of this. Burt found fame later in the 90s with some TV series that he did.
Right.
And then, you know, towards the end of his life, he did some good dramatic stuff. But the mid 80s were not kind to him. And I think Heat is smack dab in the middle of this era.
Unfairly so. I enjoyed this film.
You know what? I didn't hate it.
You didn't hate it? Well, that's fair. That's not bad. No. I don't think you can hate this film. I don't think you could watch this film and hate it. Now, is there problems or issues? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I went in with zero to low expectations. I didn't want to read the plots. When I went to Wikipedia, I just wanted to see who wrote it, who directed it, who's in it, and then I skipped down the plot. I didn't want to read any plot stuff because they go through the whole film. Then I went to the production. So I read the production notes and the problems before the movie ran, and I read the reviews from, you know, the conglomerates at the time, the review conglomerates at the time. And I was like, oh boy, this movie is just, oof, it sounds like a real clunker.
Yeah.
So I went and think, okay, well, we got to do it for the show. But I was actually, wait a minute, this, maybe because there's something nostalgic about watching this movie for me. Something just, maybe because I'm from the 80s, 11 years old when this came out, and I was a child of the 80s in the video store and all that stuff. I found something quaint, nostalgic about this, and I found myself endeared by Burt Reynolds' scream persona.
Yeah. If you want to start talking about how the movie starts.
Why don't we talk about the production first? Sure.
One of the interesting stories is Burt, he punched out the director.
Yeah.
And the director left the project.
That was the second director.
Correct.
First director was Robert Altman.
But he dropped out, I think, pretty early.
He detested the commerciality of William Goldman's script.
Yeah, but William Goldman is a heavy hitter, too.
So Altman was originally connected to direct this film, which is a big name. Now, I'm not a huge Robert Altman fan. I'm really not. He's kind of very dry. He's very artsy-fartsy. So I'm glad he didn't do this film because I don't think it would have been maybe as fun as the film was. So and to his own admission, Robert Altman didn't like that this film seemed commercial to him. He left the movie, got out of his contract on a technicality because his desired cinematographer could not obtain the necessary permits to work on the film. So Altman's like, well, the cinematographer comes with me, guys. Sorry. So he left. He was then replaced by the second director on the film, now Dick Richards. Why would you name your kid Dick when your last name is Richards? Hey,
yeah.
It's like, hey,
Richard
Dick.
Richards?
Yeah, well, no, Dick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's funny because I'll talk to my father-in-law and my brother-in-law about their first name. Look, it's fine. Trust me.
Hey, it's not their fault. It's their parents' fault.
That's true.
Okay. Now, Richards did not get along with Reynolds. At one point, Burt Reynolds hit Richards. So the director's like, screw this. I'm leaving. I'm done with this project. So then he was replaced by a guy named Jerry Jameson. But Jameson didn't last very long for whatever reason. So he left. Richards comes back, but he gets injured when he falls off a camera crane.
Which he probably did on purpose so he wouldn't have to be there.
Yeah. Dick Richards, he tried to sue Burt for $25 million for assault. That's a little high.
That's
They probably
crazy.
got into a little heated argument. I get it. But Reynolds ended up paying $500,000. In 1996, Burt Reynolds said, I spent $500,000 for that punch.
Unbelievable.
He also got into fights with Joel Silver through his career. Burt Reynolds says here, if I hit a guy, it's certain that he will later run a studio or become a huge director.
That's pretty good.
So I like this Burt, man. Like, it sounds like he might be difficult to work with.
Yeah, you think? I don't know if he ever physically assaulted anybody else, but he has kind of a rep
I heard that with Paul Thomas Anderson for Boogie Nights. He was difficult there, too.
Paul Thomas Anderson invited him back for his next film, and Burt Reynolds like, no, I don't like you. I'm not working with you anymore. Even though he got an Oscar nomination out of the thing.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess if Burt sets his mind to something, then that's how it is.
So this film, though, did not do well at the box office. It only made $2.5 million, which is like $5 million in today's box office receipts. So really, it didn't do well. Kind of a bomb. It actually fell right behind a re-release of Hannah and Her Sisters. So that's how bad this film did.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it did do very well in 1987 at the box office. Did you know that this film was remade?
I'm seeing that with Jason Statham.
Yeah, it was remade into a movie called Wild Card. The credit of writing still goes to William Goldman. And it was directed by Simon West, who directed such hits as Expendables Part 2 and Con Air.
Air.
Yeah, that one didn't do very good either. It was in select theaters, and then it went straight to DVD and what have you. But I'm almost tempted to watch the remake with Jason Statham.
Could be interesting. I'm curious to see how close they would stay, especially if they're using Goldman's script.
Well, let's talk about William Goldman. I mean, I'm sure that 90% of our listeners are like, oh, of course we know who that is. William Goldman is a prolific screen and novel writer. This guy is no slouch. I mean, he wrote Heat #1. Let's be honest; that's the greatest film of his career. But not only should William Goldman, may he rest in peace, be known for such hits as Heat, he also wrote one of our childhood favorite films, The Princess Bride.
Yes, he did. Absolutely.
Is that crazy to you? The same guy that wrote Princess Bride wrote this film.
Wrote this. They could not be more different.
Because this film is based on his book. It wasn't just a screenplay that he wrote. He wrote the novel, and then the screenplay was based on his novel. I would guarantee the novel's better than the film, probably.
Probably. Is the novel called Heat as well?
Yeah, that's my understanding. It's called Heat. It's called Heat.
Got it. Gotcha.
Yeah, it was published in 1985. In the UK, though, if you're in the UK listening, it's called Edged Weapons.
And we'll see why it's called that.
He wrote The Princess Bride in 1973. He also wrote The Marathon Man. Some of the screenplays he wrote are Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which he won an Academy Award for, The Stepford Wives, Marathon Man, All the President's Men. He also won an Academy Award for that. A Bridge Too Far, The Princess Bride, Misery, Chaplin, and
Last Action Hero, uncredited.
Uncredited, which means he probably came in and did some tweaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie Maverick, The Ghost in the Darkness, Good Will Hunting. He was a consultant. So this guy is been hired to help tweak. He's written novels. He's won awards. He died in 2018 at the age of 87. There you go.
Oh, wow.
William Goldman. Let's get to the film.
Nick Escalante is a... I don't even know what he is. He's like this...
Burt Reynolds plays Nick Escalante, but he has
they call him Mex.
Not Max, Mex, M-E-X.
Escalante, the last name certainly seems Hispanic.
So
sure.
Maybe Escalante in the books is actually from Mexico. It's never said.
Maybe. Burt Reynolds obviously is not Latino at all. But
no, there was no indication why he was called Mex, but all the same, his nickname was Mex. So he fought in Vietnam.
Correct.
His role in the Vietnam War was so noteworthy. Rambo himself would be like, well, this guy could be an adversary, because he was described in this film, Nick Escalante, or Burt Reynolds' character, was described as being the most dangerous person in the world.
Yes, with edged weapons.
He doesn't use guns. He does not use guns.
No, that's a big plot point in this movie.
Yeah, he's like the Batman soldier of fortune. He will not use guns.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so Burt Reynolds' character, Nick, he doesn't use guns. He's a soldier of fortune. Now, what a soldier of fortune is for our uneducated, which is me, I had to kind of make sure I understood it. It's basically you're a hired gun, like the A-Team. The A-Team was they're soldiers of fortune. Okay, I can hire you to be my bodyguard or whatever. So that's what he advertised himself as, a chaperone to get around the legality of his job, because he's kind of a tough guy. If you go to the Yellow Pages in 1986 in Las Vegas, where this film takes place, look under chaperone and you'll find the services of Nick Escalante, the chaperone. He'll hang out with you and keep you safe.
Correct. It was never implied that he did anything more than that as a chaperone.
He didn't dip his ink in anything.
No. He did have a lot of lady friends who sort of came in and out of his story there.
Well, I get the impression he's from Vegas, and if he hasn't been there for the last 20 odd years since the Vietnam War, it sounds like he's been there maybe his whole life. Vegas seems to be his hometown.
He's also, as we find out, a gambling addict.
Yes.
He can't control himself.
No. Well, yeah, we'll get to definitely some of his gambling. So he's a soldier of fortune. He's a chaperone. That's his job. He has an office. He has a boss, I guess. He has somebody kind of maybe sort of a boss secretary that handles his appointments and gigs. And
Howard Hessman.
Howard Hessman.
That's right.
Venus Flytrap from WKRP in Cincinnati.
That's it.
He was so cool looking in that TV sitcom.
He was. He wasn't really cool looking in this movie, though.
No, it's weird. Well, I had to look up when WKRP was originally aired. It was like 78 to 82. It was only 4 seasons. I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah, it seemed longer as a kid.
How much of a crush on Lonnie Anderson did you have back in the day?
I think everybody had a crush on Lonnie Anderson.
You know who else did?
Burt Reynolds did. So
there's your WKRP Cincinnati connection.
Man, I wonder if they traded Lonnie stories on the set.
Oh, boy. I think Burt was dating her at the time of this film.
Oh, so they weren't married yet?
Dating and or married, very close. I didn't get too much into the weeds. So all you Burt fans who are listening, don't at me. We're not a Burt encyclopedia here, okay, guys? So we're just giving you the general. So it's just that's your little connection there. So his boss at work was Venus Flytrap, but he looked, pretty much just like a normal guy, no goatee or mustache or whatever it was from that show. But it's just funny that his co-star ended up being the spouse to Burt for a little while there.
Yes.
Before we get to that office scene, though, the movie has cold open, but it opens with Burt at a bar, and I knew nothing about this film. So when this film opened, I got tricked. Did you get tricked?
Yes, I did. And I think it's probably one of my favorite things about the movie is the first 10 minutes. When the movie starts, going into it absolutely cold, like 3 minutes in, you're like, I'm watching a film about a scumbag.
Yeah.
I said, what is going on here? Because he immediately, Burt Reynolds, is harassing this woman who comes into this bar to meet someone for a date. He is acting incredibly inappropriately towards this lady. He's touching her. He's not letting her pass by him. He's all close to her, and she's obviously very uncomfortable by all of it. He keeps bugging her to dance, and she's like, I really don't want to. Please leave me alone. And he's like, no. You're going to dance with me. Immediately, you're sort of knocked off center. What is this? Burt Reynolds, he was a pretty big star. I mean, his star was falling, but this doesn't seem like the role he would have signed up for, because you figure he's the antagonist or the protagonist of the movie, but he's acting like this creep. As the scene plays out, this lady's date comes in, and he's like this scrawny little nerdy guy, and he wears a toupee. Ironically, did Burt Reynolds at this time. Famously wore these toupees, but Burt grabs the toupee off the guy's head and starts petting it like an animal and making fun of the guy. This poor couple who's being harassed by jerk Burt Reynolds, they get to the parking lot, and Burt's like, hey, no. Okay, hey, where are you going? The little nerdy guy's like, I'm going to take care of this. And you're like, okay, well, what the heck is going on? Yeah. So the little nerdy guy beats Burt's ass.
Yeah, I was like, wow. Wow.
The girlfriend is really turned on. And that's the first 10 minutes of the film. And then the scene changes, and you're like, what is going on here? But then he wakes up in his apartment the next day. He pounds Excedrin all through this movie. So he just eats Excedrin like candy.
Yeah, and he mentions that he has headaches. I like how Burt, throughout the movie, grabs his edge of the top of his nose, feeling like he has a migraine. Acting mode, the little subtlety of like he has a headache throughout the whole film.
Mm-hmm. That's the first 10 minutes of the movie. Like you, I was like, what is this? What am I watching here?
So we'll get to the scene where Osgood, I think his name was Osgood, the guy that beat up Burt's character at the parking lot. And like you, I guess he was just drunk, but he's a real jerk when he's drunk. And I knew he was a soldier of fortune. Like, how's this guy getting his butt kicked from this office worker type personality?
Yes.
The next scene after he wakes up, he's in a diner. Osgood comes into the diner like, what? And starts talking to Burt.
Next. It worked. We're going to Atlantic City.
Right.
I got a zillion things I got to take care of, so let's get this done. Okay, it was 500. Right?
Not the right amount, Ozzy.
Well, sure it is. We agreed. Don't you remember? I asked you if it was okay if I beat the crap out of you?
Not your everyday request.
And we said it. It was 150 for your time in trouble. Another 150 if it worked. Now it's 300. Okay, and another 200 is kind of a friendship bonus, okay?
I appreciate it, Oz. Don't tip me.
Sure. Thanks. You're a great guy, Nick. Appreciate it. You're a great guy.
Have fun in Atlantic City.
Okay, so this guy, Osgood, he paid Burt Reynolds to play act getting his ass kicked.
Yes.
He was going to be given $500 from his co-conspirator here, the guy that beat him up, so to speak. He didn't want the extra money. He didn't want the tip. It's an odd behavior. He's saving up money. So his goal throughout this whole film is to save up $100,000, which he thinks will give him 5 years of not worrying about life in Venice. He wants to go to Venice for whatever reason. Never really says why he wants to be in Venice, but Venice seems to be the place that he wants to chill and hang out. His character in the film is just shy of 50, but Burt is 50 in this film. So a little bit of context for listeners. But it looks good. And here's the other thing I actually really found watching Burt in this film. He's got a good build on him. His pipes are pretty big, but he's actually got a good football-like build to him, and he's got some pretty good pipes on him. I don't know if you noticed the one scene where he's wearing the things actually at the beginning of the film when he's taking medicine, right?
Yeah, he's got the wife beater on.
Right here, actually. It's right here. So
God, the music.
Yeah. Want to hear that music? Here's gonna sample that music that Jared was talking about. Yeah, he's got a great full set of hair there. My understanding was in 1977 when he was doing Deliverance 10 years previous, he was balding, but for some reason 10 years later he's got a full set of hair. It's weird how that works.
Yeah, it's very strange.
He's got a heart of gold, this guy, so he's trying to save up $100,000 so he can semi-retire or vacation for 5 years in Venice, Italy. He made good money here. It was $500 for really what amounted to be a half-hour work.
Well, he only got $300, remember?
Well, he could have taken $500.
That speaks to his character a little bit. He's very proud. He's like, don't tip me. I'm not a waitress. I got that kind of feeling off of him when he was talking to Osgood about it.
We find later in the movie that he's in Vegas and he's gambling some money. And he wins $100,000 in money. He has $100,000 in winnings. Great little sequence there. I actually quite enjoyed the gambling sequence. I was stressed out the whole time. I don't know about you. I get stressed out when people are when they're gambling in films. I always get stressed out because there's a lot of money. He started with $10,000, and now he had $100,000. He went back to bet it again and lost it all.
Yes,
but I think that's what we're seeing here at the beginning of the film is he doesn't want to leave Vegas. He's afraid. He had a way to leave Vegas. His goal was $100,000, and he had it, but he ended up blowing it. And I think that was intentional. It was like a self-sabotage. Yeah,
you could be right. He's a kind of person who talks a big game, but they're just kind of happy where they are. That definitely seems consistent with his character. But, we do get these little character beats from Nick, Burt. Apparently, this office, I don't know what, a travel agent office he's in with Howard Hessman. I'm not sure what that office is.
It's like an open secret, so to speak. You know how like the A-Team, we talk about the A-Team Soldiers of Fortune that they were?
Yes.
The government can never find them. But the lady whose dog was kidnapped could find them. I never understood how that worked.
That's true. Yeah, I never did either. I didn't ever think about it. But I don't think we're supposed to think too hard about it.
But we do know that Burt Reynolds' character, Nick, he does advertise in the Yellow Pages, but under chaperone.
Yeah.
He's not really hiding, but he's hiding in plain sight, and he's below a dance studio, their office here.
Correct. That's what I was going to say. He's very, the little kids love him. He's a very personable, friendly guy, and we see this. We see that he's a good guy. I mean, he may do shady things for money, but he's generally a good person.
Yeah, he has prostitutes for friends. He knows the neighborhood. He's got a heart of gold. He's Rocky. He's like a soldier of fortune Rocky.
He is. If Rocky joined the A-Team, it would be Nick Escalante.
Yeah, totally agree. So now we have a character come in. His name is Cyrus Kinnick. Talk about first names. Why would you name your kid Cyrus?
Oh, man. Who knows?
Yeah.
Cyrus. Is this, the 1800s?
Yeah. Played by a guy named Peter
McNichol.
McNichol. Now, did you ever watch Ally McBeal back in the day?
I remember him on that, but what I mostly remember him for is Ghostbusters 2.
Oh, I forgot that he was in that. Okay.
He plays the little weird guy who works with Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, wow. Look at you. Good pull there. I was a big Ally McBeal fan. I admit, quite enjoyed the show. He was great on that show. And he actually won a few Emmys on that show. Wow. Yeah.
He's a good actor.
He is a good actor. He's a bright spot in this film. He's 32 in this film, but he's playing a 28-year-old, just shy of a 30-year-old. So he's playing within his range. I like that. Both Burt and him are both playing within their age range. So he's coming, he's found Nick, and he's like, hey, I need your services. I want you to chaperone me. He himself is also a gambler. He wants protection while he gambles in Vegas. And he hasn't revealed it yet, but he's a millionaire as well.
Yes.
Okay. I think he's bored. I think he bought Nick as a friend.
I think so. I mean, he seems like the kind of guy who would probably do that. He strikes me as the kind of guy, I don't think he has many friends. He definitely starts to look up to Nick as the movie goes on. He really values his input and his advice. This character is at a bright spot in the movie.
He says here to Burt in their little interview at the office, he says he is a gambler right away. My apologies, I forgot that. So he does say that he's a considerable gambler. He's lost like $75 to $100. You'd think he's joking, but he's not. He thinks it's a lot of money, which is odd because he's a millionaire.
When he starts betting, he's betting like $5, $15. He's very timid. He doesn't really know what he's doing when he's there.
Well, we find out later why he really hired Burt, but when he comes into the office, he's telling Nick here that he wants a bodyguard for his gambling. But we find out later why he's really hired him. But for now, this is what he's saying to Nick. And Nick doesn't quite buy it, but he'll take the job. But listen to his resume. I love the sequence here when Nick gives his resume.
Well, I'm in the yellow pages, right between chapels and charm schools. I'm the only licensed chaperone in the state of Nevada.
You refer to yourself as a chaperone.
Why, he's a class act, Mr. Kinnick.
Pardon me if I don't ask all the right questions here. Could you tell me something about yourself, please?
Wait a minute. You want him to list disqualifications?
Well, not if I didn't want to, would you?
Well, I've been knocked down, blown up, lied to, shit on, shot at. I'm not a virgin except in my heart. Nothing much surprises me anymore except what people do to each other. I'm a licensed pilot. I lectured on economics at Yale. And I can memorize the front page of the New York Times in 5 minutes and repeat it back to you in 5 weeks. I was National Golden Gloves champion 3 years in a row, and I'm fluent in 4 languages. And...
God.
Don't interrupt me, I'm not through.
There's more.
Yeah, I lie a lot.
I love that whole thing there. Howard Hesseman's character throughout this, he's nodding his head. Yeah, I knew that about him. I knew that about him. And then he starts saying things like, I don't think you taught at Harvard or what have you. And
yeah.
And he goes, no, there's more. I lie a lot. That's clever. That's that Goldman writing, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely coming from the script. It's a nice little sequence there, though, the resume reading there.
And I found this film. I wonder if Quentin Tarantino watched this film before he wrote his films like Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction. And I know some of the criticisms when this was out was that it felt disjointed. Are we watching a drama? Are we watching a comedy? But I think 2022 now, I think in modern day eyes there, Jared, though, watching this today, that disjointedness has been done so much that it wasn't shocking to me to watch it. I like how we had a comedy, dark, brutal, funny. We have a sequence coming up shortly here where Nick's going to see the prostitute friend of his that got the crap kicked out of her by some mob boss, and her face is beaten to a pulp, and it's hard to watch her act. But then there's a sequence where she's acting, or of course acting, but where she's drinking coffee, and she has an awkward time drinking the coffee between her broken face.
Because she can't put it up to her broken lip, so she's trying to drink it out of the side of her mouth.
And it's actually kind of comically and very subtly done, and it's just little moments like that. I'm like, this is clever. I like how much each actor is putting into their role. And the disjointedness is actually what I found the most enjoyable. It was comedic, and there were some tense moments as well throughout the film.
When you speak about the disjointedness of it almost felt like 3 episodes of a TV series. You got the setup with Burt, and you introduce Cyrus, and we start talking to his prostitute friend. But then it feels like the whole sequence in the casino is a different movie almost. And then towards the end of the film, we kind of go back to the story that's begun here in the first 30 minutes or so. It just feels like maybe the whole casino sequence feels like it's from somewhere else.
Okay. There are like 3 main storylines. There's the storyline of his prostitute friend. Now, she wasn't hired by the mob boss guy. What was his name again? Oh, yeah, Danny DeMarco.
Danny. Yeah.
So Danny DeMarco plays this young, small man syndrome mob boss or mini boss in Las Vegas. I don't know if he hired her.
I think she was hired by him.
Okay, so she was hired, and for whatever reason, Danny kicked the crap out of her, and then this is all off screen Thankfully, this is actually off screen. So, and sexually assaulted her brutally. And this is what I mean about the tone changes in this film. You got these comedic moments on one end, and then you got her describing her sexual assault to Burt.
It's pretty horrific.
Yeah. She was punched up really badly. She says what they did to her. And what I liked about her character, too, played by Karen Young, her name is Holly, she was still tough. You know, she was broken, but she was still tough. She wanted to hire Nick to find where they were. She only knows what hotel they were in, not what room they were in.
Yeah, because we see at the very beginning of the movie, they drop her off at the emergency room. That's something we have no context for. This bloody lady that gets kicked out of a car.
And she just kept asking for Mex the whole time. And the hospital, we're able to track him down and say, look, she's looking for you. It ends up describing the whole sexual assault. At one point, he inserted his gun in her privates. He said to her, you tell me how much you love me, and if I believe you, I won't pull the trigger. And she tried to, and he pulls the trigger anyways to terrify her. Then his henchmen had their way with her afterwards, and then they dumped her at the hospital. So this is a real brutal experience that she's had. Because I think she is a prostitute, they treated her this way more than they would have had she not been one.
Yes. This mob boss, he just has the most punchable face. Man, you just can't wait to see this scumbag getting what's coming to him.
Nick hears the story. He's kind of hesitant. He's like, I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to help you. But then he says, I've known you since you were in braces. He's known her. She's obviously got a troubled past, and he can't ignore her plea anymore. He said, okay, I'll find him. I'll take care of it for you. Now, that storyline kind of ends when he says that to her, says, I'll go find where he is, and we'll take care of this. But then the next sequence is him meeting
Cyrus right?
At the casino. And that sequence there, it's just them kind of talking. He's chaperoning Cyrus, and he's finding that Cyrus doesn't really need him. He basically says, look, you don't need me here. You're going to be safe here. No one's ever been mugged in a casino before. I like that. And once you step out, there's a taxi cab 60 seconds away, and it'll take you right to your house. So you don't really need me. And he ends up leaving him at the casino. Because we still don't know why he's been hired as a chaperone.
Yes, we don't. But we will find out, but we don't know yet.
Actually, there was a sequence I really liked that we get to hear Holly talking about the revenge that she wants from Nick.
Why are you starting to lie, Holly?
I'm not. I want him in jail.
Then hire a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer.
I don't know his name or what room he was in or any goddamn thing about him. How can you not help me?
Because I have a very strong feeling that those three fellas that you're talking about were not elders from the Mormon church. What hotel were you in?
Dante's.
Oh, great.
A lot of people like it.
The showgirls have mustaches, and the waitresses can rip the phone book in half.
You're gonna help me.
You know, when I first came here, you were just a little girl across the street with pimples on your face.
You go to hell. I always had good skin.
That same year, Baby tried to recruit me for the combination. I told him to catch a cab. I'm going to work somebody over. It's going to be my idea, not somebody else's. Baby always respected that. I'm going to keep it that way.
Call me and tell me who he is so I can sue him. I'll be here. Or better yet, I'll come over to your place.
I'm not going to call you. I don't know anybody at Dante's. So don't count on me, Holly.
Liar.
A little bit of background there on their first meeting about it. So he said he's not going to help her, but he ends up doing some preliminary work, finds out where DeMarco is hiding at the hotel, and they have another second conversation. This is where she pleads a little bit more. It's a little bit more forward, like, this guy really hurt me.
Hey, what'd you find out?
Nothing. I came up empty.
Hey, you forget who you're talking to. Tell me the truth.
Go home, Holly.
Hey, you know what the guy did when he was finished? He put a gun inside me, and I don't mean my mouth. He said, tell me you love me, and if I believe you, I'll let you go. So I said, oh, God, I love you. I love you so much, I do. And he pulled the trigger, and then there was a click. He was just playing games with me. Some swell games to play with another human, right, Nikki? And I want to sue him, and you know who he is, and just let him walk away?
They've known each other a long time. He's going to agree to help him out. So he goes to the hotel. Now, at first, I didn't realize when Burt got to the hotel, gets to the room, I'm thinking, we're only a half hour into the film. He's already approaching the mob boss and his two goons in his hotel room. Did you catch that he was wearing a pimp suit right away? I just thought it was a 1980s clothing. I didn't realize it was an actual pimp suit.
I didn't put together that it was a pimp suit. It was a very flamboyant outfit. The jacket was pretty crazy.
I thought it was Burt's outfit. I didn't clue in.
Sure.
Because it wasn't quite halfway through the conversation that he has with DeMarco that DeMarco sees him as a pimp. Yeah, I just thought he just saw him as the prostitute friend. Like he was coming as a friend. So I was like, what's his role here? And maybe that was supposed to play out that way. I'm not sure, but it wasn't clear that I'm looking like a pimp because he actually uses his real name when he introduces himself, which I thought was odd.
Yeah. The way he was dressed and the way he was approaching the situation, he wanted them to think that Holly worked for him. Like, hey, you've beat up
one of my girls. So there's that kind of like crime underlean of like, because he says he's in the people business. That's what he referred to it as. And even DeMarco's like, oh, I've never heard that called the people business. So he listened to Nick more than he would have because he's a crime guy too. If that makes sense. He wasn't coming in for revenge. He was like, you beat up one of my property. This girl makes me money and you damaged her. That was his approach.
Yes. I think that's what we're supposed to believe anyway.
So before he goes in, the goons pat him down for weapons. Now we know he doesn't carry a gun, so he had no gun on him. He had 2 credit cards with him. One was American Express and one was Visa. He also had a big pimpin' gold chain medallion. Now these things will come into play later.
They will.
Did you know where the scene was going to go?
No, I didn't. I had no idea that the credit cards were going to become throwing stars. The way it plays out is really kind of great, actually.
Yeah, so we'll play the dialogue really quickly here. You'll hear Nick's response to this mini boss mafia guy. He says he's like a punk kid. You know, his dad's a big mafioso, and he's kind of like in his dad's shadows a little bit. He's playing mini boss, right? So he pulls a gun on Nick and asks the question, are you scared? This is Nick's response to this conversation.
Come here, I want to show you something. This is, 20,000. Should that cover the disrespect?
Very generous.
This is important. He shows Nick, and Nick didn't know this, of course, there's $20,000 in that drawer. That's $40,000 in today's money, a good chunk of change. He's like, I'll give you $40,000 or $20,000 in 86. I'll give you this much money to pay for the damages that your girl. And Nick's like, hey, that sounds fair. Sure, we'll do that. DeMarco throws the money back to the desk, and now he pulls his gun out.
You're very stupid. But even so, you probably know what this is. Are you scared? I bet I'm scaring the shit out of you.
Why don't you let me just walk out of here?
Oh, you gonna leave, Nick? The question is, what kind of shape you're gonna be in when you do? You see, Nick, if I let you walk out free as air, I'd want people to know how sweet I am. So tell me, talk to me now. Tell me about my good qualities.
So this guy really gets off on people telling him how amazing he is.
Yeah.
He wanted the prostitute to say how much he loves him and all this stuff, and now he's asking this complete stranger, tell me about my good qualities, which is such an odd request to do to someone you're about to shoot.
Yeah, exactly. This guy, though, he just plays it so disgustingly. Like, you just hate this guy immediately.
So let's hear Nick's response to this. This is great.
And if I believe you, you're free as air.
Peach of a guy. You're A1. You're a swell fella.
Peach of a guy.
Yeah.
You failed so far, Nick.
Now, I will give a credit to the musical score here. I don't like that saxophone playing that they do throughout the film here and there.
Yes.
But this part here was actually really good at kind of building the tension. This doom, doom.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Dude, this is a good tension filmed sequence. These 2 big goons are behind Nick. He does not have a gun. Now, granted, what he does to get out of this is absolutely insane and incredibly... but we'll get to that. We'll have to describe it to our audience.
Man.
I clipped it and put it on Twitter because it's one of the best sequences I've ever seen in an action film history. I think it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Love that little musical score cue. And it's great because now DeMarco's saying, you failed so far, Nick. You're not passing the test. So I'm thinking to myself, how's he going to get out of this?
But I like you. I do. So I'll give you just one more shot. So go on. Tell me about my good qualities. I'm waiting. What the hell are you thinking about?
Now, right there, he yells, what the hell are you thinking about? Because he's grabbing his nose again. He's got a headache. A headache has come on. DeMarco's mad that he seems to be almost indifferent to his threats. And so he's that small man syndrome of like, why are you not scared of me? But he's actually just like, oh, I got a headache right now. He's almost like more concerned about his headache than the fact that he's got a weapon pointed at him.
I was thinking about Venice.
Venice?
Venice.
Get him out of here.
All right, so we're gonna have to describe kind of what's happened here. So he turns to his side a little bit. He karate kicks or backward kicks into one of the thug's legs, and the impact is so incredibly hard and so incredibly damaging that the bone tears through the skin and his pants and gushes blood within an instant. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, you're getting it right.
The impact kick from this 50-year-old man who's a soldier for hire is so powerful that this guy's leg explodes.
It does. You got to tell me when we start getting to those weird.
Oh, you can describe it. I'll play it through and you just talk about it.
The weird edits that were like the freeze frames and all that stuff that they start doing.
He breaks the one guy's leg. We got that. His next move is he takes off his gold. Well, he pulls on the big circled gold medallion that he's got on his necklace. And it's not even a throwing star. Basically, I guess this is a heavy chunk of metal, and he throws it at DeMarco's face. I guess it just breaks some teeth or something, knocks him into his chair. And then when DeMarco goes down to grab in his face, Nick now attacks the second bodyguard with a flying jiu-jitsu kind of like Jackie Chan kick. Am I getting that?
Yeah, you're pretty spot on so far.
So he kicks him in the nuts, I should say. Yeah, kicks him in the nuts. Then he kicks him in the face. Then he kicks him in the chest. Then he kicks him back in the face, and it's like this weird, odd edit where it slows down, pauses.
Oh, man. That's probably my favorite part of the movie.
It's incredible.
This like 30 seconds of just crazy nonsense. Up to this point, the movie has not been edited in this way.
No.
So it's very jarring when it starts, and you're just like, what am I watching here?
Because it goes ultra violent really quickly. We've got broken faces. Oh, yeah, and he also takes the credit card, and I guess they have little blades in them.
Yes.
And he ends up slicing their faces at the same time. So he slices faces, explodes legs, collapses their chests with kicks. These guys are just getting beaten to a pulp.
Oh, man. Just the slow-mo as he throws his medallion and hits that kid in the face. That is just, it's amazing. The whole editing of the film changes here because we start getting freeze frames and choppy editing. It really stands out.
Absolutely a fantastic moment in this film.
And every once in a while, they cut back to the guy holding his knee with the bone sticking out, just so you remember that, hey, this guy has he's got a broken knee. Oh, man.
After this beating down of these three guys, I'm telling you, Quentin Tarantino watched this film. Because this sequence here of Holly coming through the elevator, she's got the big sunglasses on. It reminded me of when in Kill Bill, when Uma Thurman's wearing those sunglasses after she's been beaten up.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it totally reminded me of the same hair, too. Blonde hair, looks the same. I'm telling you, man, there's some similarity here between some Kill Bill, Uma Thurman, and the Holly of this film. That's Quentin Tarantino's style. He could be very brutal and very violent, and it's very funny at the same time. So she comes into the hotel now because these guys are now tied up to exact her revenge. So Nick's like, I've got them for you. She's now going to taunt DeMarco. He's on the ground tied up, and this is really good dialogue here, and we'll just play a little bit of it. She's brought some gardening shears. She's going to cut his penis off. She's going to castrate him.
She is.
And there's a small part of me who's like, is she going to do it? Now, she doesn't do it, but what she does do, she actually does.
She cuts him.
Yeah, his penis is exposed. Now, not on film, but off camera. It's lying out there, and she still surgically cuts the tip of his penis enough that it's going to be...
It's blood.
There's blood. He goes, I'm bleeding everywhere. Yeah. So let's hear a little bit of that dialogue here.
Let's do it.
So now she's going to tell him, I want you to tell me that you love me. I want to believe it. If I don't believe that you love me, I'm going to cut your balls off, which is essentially, of course, the reverse of what he did to her.
She turned it around. Yep.
Absolutely. I think it's a great moment. That's that dark, gritty parts that I'm talking about this film, that disjointedness, this is the violent part of the film right now. Before we get back to the, buddy Rayman part of the film.
That's true.
You're not mad at me then?
No.
Good. I'm gonna give you the same break you gave me. Tell me you love me.
I love you. I love you.
I don't think that sounded really sincere. Do you think he's sincere?
This is your show.
I really like that moment there. She looks to him saying, she's trying to draw him in, but I found that very interesting. His character's like, look, I got them to you. However you need to deal with them for your own whatever, it's your show.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that. So it goes on that she doesn't believe him. Nix is wee-wee. And they take the 20 grand, and she ends up giving him 10. He doesn't want it at first, but he ends up with it anyways.
Yes.
What she does is she gives it to a complete stranger. The stranger finds Nick and says, hey, that lady wants you to have this envelope, and that envelope is 10 grand. He then takes that 10 grand, like we talked about earlier, to the casino with Cyrus, and they have a good night and wins 100 grand, and then he turns around and bets it and loses it again, so he's back to square one.
Loses it all.
But I really like that sequence when he's losing the money with his friend that's the dealer.
Yes.
And she's crying.
He has this dealer who he's obviously friends with. Maybe she's an old flame or something. You sort of get that vibe from them, I think.
They have a history.
Yeah, there's a history there. When he starts playing blackjack, he takes a pretty big risk. He has 19, but he knows that she has 20. And he's like, I'm going to lose anyway. So what you're going to do is hand me a 2. And so she unknowingly, I don't think she's cheating, she deals him a 2 and he wins. And this starts a sequence of
Lady Luck's on his shoulder.
Yes, where he all of a sudden he's up 6 figures. He has 100 grand, but he just can't stop himself. But he has that great conversation with Cyrus. It's either before he gets started or when he's taking a break or something. But
it's before, yeah.
And he talks about, well, this is how much money I need to go to Venice and do what I want to do.
And Cyrus is trying to talk him down, saying, well, you've got it. Why do you want to go back and risk it all? You have it.
Yes.
And we find out because he's a gambler. He's addicted himself.
Yes, and he needs what he calls FU money.
Yeah, I love that. Now Burt's character is kind of like, okay, I'm back to square one. I don't have money, and
he ends up losing everything.
And the way he said is like, well, I lost $10,000. That's all he lost. He goes, I had 100,000, but I only lost 10,000 because he came in with that 10,000 that he got from the mob boss, DeMarco. So I guess the way he's looking at it too is it was never mine anyways. I didn't lose money. I never had this money. 24 hours ago, I didn't have this anyways.
Correct.
But he did have 100 grand at one point. But we know now that he doesn't really want to. He's probably too afraid. He's comfortable here. He doesn't really want to leave.
And he said, if I got the 150 grand, I would have wanted 250 grand.
Right. It's never.
It would nothing would have been enough for him.
So we get into this weird little sequence here, where we now find out that Cyrus has hired him to basically not be
maybe a loser. He doesn't want to be a loser.
You remember Back to the Future, the film, of course?
Yes.
Marty McFly's dad.
So,
George McFly.
He doesn't want to.
Yes, he's a George McFly.
This guy, Cyrus, has never been. He's terrified of getting into some kind of altercation.
There you go, yeah.
He's never been punched in the face. He's never had anything really bad happen to him, and he's always terrified that it's going to happen to him.
So now we find out the reason why he's found Nick, and the reason why he wants to kind of be his friend. He wants to be tough. He wants to be tough like Nick. How do you do this? And so we have this weird training sequence at Cyrus's mansion.
I love the part Cyrus says to Burt. He's like, well, I was very good in school, so let's try this. And he pulls out a notebook and starts trying to take notes on what he's saying. The whole time I'm thinking, this is not really something you can't just have this tough guy explain to you how not to be a loser. It's not something that you could just do in a classroom. It's very funny to me that Cyrus kind of expects that that's how he's going to absorb this.
And Nick plays along. He plays along.
He does.
It's weird.
Yeah, he's a good sport about it.
I think he, in his own weird way, is finding a friendship with Cyrus as well. It's mutually beneficial to both of them. First, he tells him, in order to incapacitate a man, you just tear off his ear.
Yes.
And then that's where Cyrus goes, why don't we just start with just the basics? You know, I can take notes. I was really good at school, so I'm good at taking notes. The idea of him tearing off ears scared him, so he just wanted to talk about the basics of violence or whatever.
Yes. I thought the bit about the ear was pretty cool, actually. It's just hanging on by some cartilage and skin. If you give it a good enough yank, it just pops right off.
Okay, you want to get started?
All right.
I assume the first thing you want to learn is how to incapacitate your man.
Yes.
The ear is great. It comes right off. You give it a yank. Most people don't know that. All that connects the ear to the head is a little cartilage, a little skin. You just give it a yank, it'll come right off. Hold it up and show it to them, and gets their attention.
My gosh. You know, I tell you, I'm wondering if this is not too practical a start for me. Now, I was rather good in school, and an academic beginning might be at best. How do you know when there's going to be violence?
He's scared of the lesson.
Yeah, he's like, okay, let's back up a little bit. Let's not start with the ear severing.
And then we have a little self-defense class where basically Nick is showing Cyrus how to fight. You know, it's kind of a comical. This is after this big brutal scene that we saw. Now we're in a kind of a comical, odd couple type montage of fight sequence and defense sequence, and he basically makes Cyrus punch himself and all this stuff. But what he's showing Cyrus in his own weird training way is that showing him how to feel pain. And it's not as bad as you think. You know, to get punched in the nose, have a bleeding lip, it's not that bad. He actually helps Cyrus get over his fear of just feeling pain.
Yeah.
And then we get kind of dark again, where the next sequence is DeMarco. He's upset that he's been taken, that he's been robbed. Number one, he lost 20 grand. He goes to the higher boss lord, which is Baby. Baby kind of runs Vegas here.
Baby, yep.
He's gone to Baby, and he's a no BS type of mob boss. He brings in Nick as well. He says, look, Nick, if DeMarco's telling the truth, I got to kill you. Yeah. Did you do the things he's accusing you of? DeMarco says, you're asking me to kill Nick here, so I got to make sure I'm getting all the right information. So this is kind of how this plays out.
And if later on I find out it's a mistake, I'm not going to like it.
I feel guilty because I let him in. You see, we had ordered room service and we were having a great time. Then when the knock came, I didn't think. I just opened the door. And this guy's standing there wearing a pimp outfit. He's got this bandana covering his face. And he pistol whips me across the mouth. You see?
Mm-hmm.
He's quick, too. He beats the shit out of Teal and Kendall like nothing.
So he's telling kind of half-truths here. Obviously, that never happened. He did let him in. He never got pistol whipped. He got hit with the medallion in the face. But we find out later that this guy actually killed his henchman to make this story true, because he says he shot my 2 henchmen.
Yes, with his gun, DeMarco's own gun. The first time I watched this went right over my head. And I was like, wait a second. But the second time I watched it, I was like, holy crap, he killed those guys.
Yeah.
Because those guys weren't dead when Nick left.
No, they were alive and well. They're just tied up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't well, and one guy had a broken femur, but
yes,
he shot them to prove to tell his own lie here. He killed his own henchman to frame
Yes,
Nick.
he did. Yep, exactly.
Now, he's on trial here, as Nick says, and so he asks Baby, let me ask you 2 questions.
You're going to answer them to your satisfaction. Whatever happens, happens, all right? Why would I use a gun?
What the fuck kind of question is that? Why would anybody use a gun?
Nicholas never does. His specialty is edged weapons. I suspect Nicholas is the most lethal man alive. And the answer to your question is this. It's perfect cover. No one would ever dream that Nick Escalante needed a piece to commit a robbery.
This is my second question. How is it that I know that Mr. DeMarco here has a small but definite cut on the upper side of his penis? The answer is I saw it put there by a sweet young lady with a pair of garden shoes.
What is this crap?
Think I'm lying? You can have him drop his pants.
You're not buying this crock, are you, baby?
Oh, you better have somebody get a microscope so we can find Mr. DeMarco's pecker.
All right, so, of course, he refuses to strip, which proves his guilt, and then he leaves, and Nick has his life spared to continue to be a chaperone in Vegas.
Yes.
And the rest of the movie is DeMarco getting his revenge on Nick. He gets 8 henchmen to track him down and to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of those henchmen is a stuntman named Dick Durock, who played the Swamp Thing.
Oh,
if you remember, he's the big who has the weird looking face. He was the Swamp Thing. Before all this goes down, he's with Cyrus.
Yeah.
You know, Cyrus is really feeling strong these days.
Yeah, he's got his confidence. He's got his confidence.
Yeah. After he gets punched in the nose, I mean, he can stop bullets now, which he does.
Spoiler, he stops bullets. He saves Nick's life.
He does. I got to say, again, spoiler alert, I thought he bought the farm there.
Before he does almost buy the farm, Cyrus offers him $20,000, which could only be cash in Venice, basically telling Nick, look,
and a plane ticket.
And a plane ticket. Go to Venice. here's 20 grand for your first year. Go enjoy your life. Retire. Get out of here. Get out of Vegas. You've helped me. I want to help you. And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
Then DeMarco and his henchmen come in. Cyrus uses one of his little tricks there about surprise punching Swamp Thing in the face.
Yes.
And then he dives in front of Nick to save him from being shot. So he acts as a shield. What we think will be his last words are, "As I don't feel any pain. I don't feel any pain," as he's dying. Because that was a callback to that he was afraid of pain.
That was his whole deal. He was scared to death of pain.
And then the rest of the movie is Burt's character being chased. So we have a great...
Burt's stuntman being chased.
You know what? Okay, I will. Yes, it's true. There was a couple sequences where there was actually one time with one of the stuntmen didn't even have a mustache. They didn't even put it on him. There's no mustache on Burt. I love it.
Yes.
But there's that one sequence where Burt jumps in the air.
I know what you're talking
that was
about.
him. That was pre CGI face, right? That was Burt leaping onto some mattress.
Yeah.
But I love the sequence where he burns that guy alive.
There is like this horror movie thing happening here where Nick, one by one, these henchmen sort of meet a grisly end. The one that stands out immediately is the guy who gets impaled next to the fuse box. He throws a piece of rebar or something into this guy strong enough to go through a fuse box. So he sits there and screams and is electrocuted and impaled.
That was a great sequence. How, he's strong enough. Can you imagine having that kind of strength where you could throw a rebar from 20 feet away accurately and strong enough to go through somebody and into a power voltage
and into a metal box. Yeah, it's okay.
Well, he's the most lethal weapon man, the most lethal man alive.
Nick Escalante.
Then my favorite sequence though is he finds a canister of gasoline and then he throws the gasoline like a bucket of water almost into this guy's face, onto his whole body. And I guess he didn't have a lighter or anything to throw on the guy. So you know what he uses instead? He flies through the air like some sort of, I don't know how to describe it, like Street Fighter video game. He flies through the air, drop kicks the overhanging light, hits the light so hard that it causes sparks. And those sparks land on this poor fellow, doused in gasoline, and up he goes. I think that's one of the greatest on-screen kills in film history. I don't care what anyone says.
It certainly was imaginative. But was that Swamp Thing that met his end like that?
Swamp Thing was the person that Cyrus punched. He punched Swamp Thing.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think he's still knocked out. I think he's still knocked out cold.
See, just rewatch this scene where he runs and jumps and kicks the light.
Isn't that incredible?
Man, that's amazing.
It is absolutely amazing. It's one of the best sequences I've seen in film history. You know what's even better about how he kills these guys is the final. Do you want to talk about the final kill? How he kills DeMarco?
Well, he basically talks him into killing himself. Now at some point, Nick gets shot. He has a gut shot. He gets shot in the stomach.
We see that he's injured. We see that Nick has been hit by some of these many bullets. So it's realistic enough that at least our hero has been injured. He is injured.
Yeah.
That plays out to be nothing in the long run.
Because it's never really addressed. But so once all the henchmen are dealt with, he gets DeMarco back in, I guess it's DeMarco's penthouse or something.
Sure.
Burt knows how many shots he's fired. Yeah. You got one left. And then he just basically talks DeMarco into shooting himself.
Yeah, he psychologically paints DeMarco into a corner where he realizes there's no way out. That even, I guess, even if he kills Nick, his life as a mob boss or whatever is over. But yeah, we hear a gunshot and he shoots himself in the head. Have you ever seen the hero talks the bad guy, the main bad guy, into killing himself?
To killing himself.
He's the most lethal. He can talk you into killing. He's like Professor X. He gets in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, with edged weapons and his voice. He's got all of it. That's another thing where I thought it was a little, the first time I saw it, it was a little strange because I was like, what is going on here? Because DeMarco kills himself off screen. I mean, all you hear is the gunshot and then you see his body later with blood coming out of his ear. It's very unique, but I also thought it was a little like anticlimactic. This is the main bad guy of the movie and he just has been talked into offing himself.
To be fair, how do you top drop kicking a light, causing sparks to light you on fire? How do you top that?
You can't. And I got to say one thing, man, Burt Reynolds, he's wearing some heels. Just going back and look at some of these fight scenes, the boots he's wearing, he's got like good 4-inch heels on. I don't think Burt was a very tall man.
I'm just Googling that right now.
Yeah, I see that.
He seemed tall in this film.
He's 5'9".
5'9".
That's
wow.
Stallone's 5'10".
So he's short. He seemed tall in this film. So he was wearing stilts. He was a big man in this film, height-wise, because he seemed to tower over people. That's funny because I thought, he looks tall in this film.
Yeah.
But no, he was wearing high-heel shoes.
He was wearing his boots. His boots had heels on them.
Yeah, Stallone. So he's 5'8".
I remember seeing in some Rocky movies, sometimes they say he's 5'11". Sometimes even, I think once was like 6 feet.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is also 5'8".
Yeah, he's small too. Yeah. Wow. These movie stars, it's crazy.
Well, I've heard that about celebrities. The odd time I hear a celebrity meeting encountered by a John Q. Public, people often say they're smaller than I thought. I think maybe the movie screen or whatever adds height. But yeah, Burt was, I thought he was 6'2", 6'3" in this film.
He looked over 6 feet tall. So
okay, so he's 5'9". Wow.
Yeah. And I noticed that during that fight scene, some of the times when I'd paused it, this big boot with the giant heels was kicking that guy in the face or something. I was like, holy cow.
I did find that Burt's fighting, even in 86, in the times it wasn't a stunt double, it was him. You could tell it was him doing the punches because he's grappling, right? He's grappling and stuff. Yeah. I will say that his on-screen fighting prowess or skill is better than Stallone's. Stallone does the same like gut punch, body punch. You know what I mean? Yeah. We've talked about that on our podcast many times outside the Rocky films. I would say Burt's fighting this film is actually better than Stallone's fighting in films.
I mean, I get the impression from reading about him, Burt was a scrapper in real life.
Yeah, I think so.
Stallone doesn't go around beating up directors. No, and
he hasn't punched any director that I'm aware of.
Burt is probably bringing some life experience to his on-screen fights, I would say.
Would you recommend this film, Jared, to our listeners?
You know what? If you haven't seen it, I would certainly say yes. It's an interesting watch. Although, unfortunately, if you've listened to our podcast on it, you've already heard the twists and turns that await you. But I think going in cold, like you were saying, Ryan, just going in cold and letting the movie just kind of play out in front of you. You're just an audience member kind of taking it in. It was a fun experience. There are twists and turns in the movie. The first 10 minutes, you're like, what the heck is going on here? And then 5 minutes after that, all the pieces fall into place. And then, you're kind of on this ride with him for the rest of the movie. Ultimately, he gets what he's looking for. He ends up in a gondola in Venice.
Right. Yeah, he goes to Venice. Yeah.
Which I wonder, I mean, it looked like they shot that in Venice.
There was no way they did not shoot that in Venice. That's what I love about these early 80s films. There's no CGI or backdrops, green screen. No. That was a canal somewhere, unless there's one in the stateside that I'm unaware of.
Yeah. That was definitely Burt Reynolds laying down in a gondola in Venice.
Yeah.
I thought, well, how much did that cost?
Yeah. To
shoot, because this whole movie was shot in the States, I think.
Yeah. We'd have to ask one of the 6 directors.
Yes, of course.
You know what I can guarantee you is this film was probably more fun to watch than Jason Statham's version of it.
Probably so, yeah. You got the 80s nostalgia factor going for this movie. For me personally, I think Burt Reynolds has a lot more charisma than Jason Statham does.
Absolutely. It looks like it was all filmed in Vegas. We should have said that too, that this was definitely in Vegas, number one. Yeah. A lot of great shots. We should have had Craig Cohen on because he lives there and he knows Vegas very well. A lot of great shots of Vegas at night.
And this is Vegas of the 80s. This Vegas doesn't exist anymore. Pretty much every casino you see in that film has been razed to the ground.
Right. And, this is dirty Vegas.
This is not Disney Vegas.
No. This might be one of my new favorite Christmas films.
That's right, because it is weirdly the holiday season throughout this movie.
This is Die Hard before Die Hard, because this was 86, 87 when it was released, but filmed in 86. This is a Christmas film. There was Christmas songs being played. There's Christmas trees everywhere, Christmas lights. This is another Christmas action film. So next time someone says Die Hard's a Christmas film, I'm going to hashtag Heat. Heat is a Christmas film.
You have to specify 1986's Heat.
1986's Heat. Next Christmas, Jared, I kid you not, I'm gonna start the hashtag Burt Reynolds and Heat is the new Christmas film. Forget Die Hard.
Well, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Jared, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, I had a great time. And if you ever think of me again in the future for something like this, let me know.
Well, I got one of mine already if you want to do Burt again.
What do we got? What are you thinking?
What I read, it was that he did Malone right after this, and these were two types of films. This was kind of out of his genre a little bit. He was told by friends and family, you should do more of these type of serious action, because I guess he was more of the goofball comedy, more of a fun Burt, and this was serious badass Burt. And so I think Malone is kind of a cousin to this film, of another action-y, dark type film. So I wouldn't mind investigating Malone.
Okay. Yeah, put it on the calendar. We'll do something.
Are you okay with another Burt?
Yeah, I think so. I watched this one 3 times.
Wow.
And I didn't totally hate my life after that.
I came in with low expectations. I can't believe I'm watching a Burt Reynolds movie, but I actually left a bit of a Burt fan. I had fun. Burt is not boring to watch. He still is ridiculous with his toupee and a bear rug. All those things are still ridiculous. His mustache, but I like him a little bit. I like Burt.
I feel like I'm filling in a hole from my childhood here. Burt Reynolds wasn't really on my radar as a younger person, but he's of that vintage, and so I feel like I should know more
he was
about.
Old here. I mean,
him.
I was I was 11 when this came out, so he's 50. So he's 39 years older than us. So we weren't following his career. We weren't following his career back then.
And he wasn't doing roles like Harrison Ford or Stallone. He wasn't really on our radar. I'm happy to go back and learn more about it.
All right. Well, anyways, thanks everyone who's joined us this far and enjoyed our journey with Burt. If you're listening to this feed for the first time because you're a Burt Reynolds fan and saw that someone's actually doing a Burt Reynolds review of Heat, hope you enjoyed our review. We'll come back at some point. We'll do a Malone. Check out all the other shows on the Last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network. Check out Jared's podcast, Hyperspace. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Appreciate that. My pleasure. Have me back anytime. I loved it.
You bet.